Hello, welcome to the Simple Logistics channel. Today I would like to discuss with you about the railroad transport. So this is a transportation mode that is historically very important for a number of countries, and we can say that it is both the past of logistics and also the future of logistics. There is a lot of talk now about the revival of railroad transport for goods and for passengers, especially for passengers in Europe and in other developing countries. And why is that? So after Greta Thunberg and the Extinction Rebellion and other movements to raise awareness about the dangers of climate change, so what we have now is a lot of people, executives, for example, changing their transport from air transport to railroad. So there is a lot of increased in demand for rail transport, especially in Europe. You know, the number of passengers in rail transport has been increasing in these last few years because people really feel they have to do something about climate change. For companies, it's the same, you know, companies are pressured by their customers to do something about climate change and also to reduce, the cost of their products. Railroad transport can help in both. So railroad transport is very economic, is very efficient, and is environmentally friendly. So that's why these has been increasing a lot over these last few years. You know, not only people are changing their travel mode from air to railroad, but companies also are increasingly using railroad freight to move their cargo, especially now that the supply chains are really long. So, for example, I read a few years back that we had the first transport of cars, finished cars, from China to Europe by rail. So the rail goes through China, Mongolia, Russia, all the way to Europe. In this case, rail transport has even replaced sea transport. So you can see now that there is a lot of demand, a lot of momentum going for rail transport. In US also, there is some talk there, especially now in these electoral periods. There is one of the major political parties in US has a plan, they call it a Green New Deal, and it calls for a lot more investment in the US rail for the transport, especially of people, passengers, you know, replacing air travel by rail. And also these investment, these improvements in infrastructure will allow for more transport of goods, also more rail freight to be moved within the US. So you see now that there is a trend for more rail, not less. So it's not a dying thing, it's not a thing of the past. It's actually a transportation mode that is alive and well. Okay, so now we are going to see some of the equipment, and we are going to learn what equipment works best with what kind of product or commodity day-to-day activities. This first picture is of a hopper wagon or car It depends where you are in the world. This kind of car is for the transport of grains or cement, this kind of stuff, solid material but granular that can flow. This is kind of a funnel, and you have a door here to allow for a release of some of the material that's here on this car. So when it reaches the destination, they just have to open these doors here to allow the material to free flow out of the car. And that's why you have this angle shape here at the end and at the beginning of the car. You also have the flat car. The flat car is especially used for the transport of containers these days, but it can also transport pallets, as you can see in the picture there, and you can transport a lot of other goods there. You can use some ropes to tie the products there. So I've seen it used to transport coils of steel, pipes, and a lot of stuff. So if you use the proper materials to secure the goods so they don't move and don't fall during the travel, then it's okay. You can use this kind of car to move a lot of goods. But these days, especially used for containers. Sometimes even two containers high. That way, rail is just absurdly more efficient than trucks for the transport of these materials. A truck can transport only one 40-foot container at a time, and just uses a lot of fuel. In a rail, a car like this, you can transport two containers per flat car. I don't know how many flat cars in one train, but the locomotive can pull a lot of weight. So you have just, it's absurdly more efficient than road transportation. This is a dumper car. It's very similar to the hopper, but this one is used especially when you reach a terminal, a port, or something like that. To unload this car, they put it in a device that will turn the car upside down. So it just unloads a lot more, a lot faster than a hopper car. This is the traditional boxcar, not very used these days. It was used back in the day to transport all kinds of boxes and loose material. Small stuff was all put in these boxcars. Today, they are really not that efficient. So companies usually use containers more often because it's easier to handle a container, to change it from the truck to the rail, then from the rail to at the port to a ship. So it's really not used very often these days, but you can still see it sometimes. You see, sometimes you can put pallets inside these box cars. I saw some of those in the US, but it's a pain in the neck to load and unload material safely from these wagons. And finally, the tank car or tank wagon, depends on where you are in the world. This is especially used for the transport of fuel. It can be used to transport other liquids also, but I would say that at least half of the use of tank cars in rail today is for the transport of fuel. it's really good that this transportation mode was chosen, for the transport of fuel and flammable material. The index of accidents in rail is much, much, much smaller than in roads. So I don't want a lot of trucks with explosive or flammable material in the roads that I use to drive with my family on the weekend. I don't want to share the road with dangerous cargo, at least not much. So I think it's really good that this kind of wagon is used. Rail is used a lot more for cargo. It just takes traffic out of the roads. It reduces the quantity of accidents in the roads, and it takes a lot of the risk that these products have out of the roads. The rail, the number of accidents is much smaller. You have trained teams. You have everything is monitored. Maintenance of these equipment is checked regularly, so it's a lot safer to transport this kind of material by rail. So this is the main purpose for these wagons today, and I'm glad that it is so. Okay, so this is what I had to share with you guys today. Just happy that this trend exists, that companies and people are looking forward, using a lot more of rail now. Are really also conscious about the dangers of climate change. So I think we all should do our part, and we all should think twice when we are choosing a transportation mode to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So I'm really glad that this is happening right now. Okay, that was all that I wanted to share with you guys today. Thank you, and please keep coming back to our channel. Okay, bye.